left, so we would love to entertain some questions. Be nice to stick to the Warlords of Draenor topics for now, though we are doing a second Q&A later on today that's pretty much open-ended.
We also appear to have a giant dance floor here in case you guys want to dance while you ask the question.
Mosh pit.
Hi. I know you said that the mythic tier of rating will stay outside of the cross realm. I come from a very small server, and we don't have any 25-man teams, and most of our guilds are also very small. We may have the issues coming up with a 20-man team. Do you have any way to address switching from a 10 and 25-man option to exclusively having a 20-man option?
So that's completely a valid concern. On smaller servers, the connected realms that we're unrolling and continuing to roll out are going to help a lot with that in terms of making sure that you have a certain critical mass on any given server, that it feels like you have a lot of active guilds to deal with recruitment and for people to find a home to raid. But that said, we recognize that this transition is not necessarily going to be an easy one, particularly for the current 10-player heroic guilds. One thing that is worth noting is that the introduction of a flexible heroic mode does at least mean that as you're trying to grow upward, you actually can continue to raid as you strive to reach that 20-player mark. Previously, it was impossible to grow from, let's say, 10 to 25, because what does a 16-player raid group look like today in Mists of Pandaria? It looks like a lot of people sitting on the bench being angry. Whereas you can do 16-player, 17-player heroic, then when you get to 20, now you can begin to do mythic. We wanted to get this information out there ahead of time so that people can start planning. And the reality is, when we release a new expansion with new content, you are going to be progressing upwards through those tiers of difficulty. There will be a lot of people returning to the game looking for homes. And our hope is that while we know it's going to be a difficult transition for many to make, in the long run, we'll be able to offer a much more streamlined experience, a much more competitive experience for the higher-end heroic raiders, and a better tuned experience all around.
Hey guys, my question is more around the player experience with questing and garrisons. So how will you manage the suspension of disbelief that happens when, for example, you have a phased-in garrison or a random event that just happens over and over and over again when you want to create a living and breathing world in Draenor? Like all the things that if you just wait a little bit or camp a little bit, you will be able to do. How will you manage those rewards for players?
Maybe you can clarify a little bit. I'm not sure what the garrison and phasing has to do with camping things.
So, for example, if you have a garrison, I'm assuming that is per player and phased for that players.
Right, like the farm.
Yeah, so particularly in that, it has to do with the living and breathing world, because I don't see what the purpose of having a garrison is if you will not have any real consequences for it. For example, why would you have a fortress if it cannot be attacked by other players, for example?
Okay. So I could see, interactions with other players being something that we do as we continue to develop the feature, maybe in the long run. I think, building a base for the sake of building a base is actually really cool. I think players will have a lot of fun, deciding where to put their buildings and what buildings they want to use. I don't think it necessarily requires that it be attacked by other players for it to be cool. Also, as far as its, kind of phased location in the world, you got to bear in mind that 99% of the world is still not phased, right? And it's still all the kind of public adventuring area that you normally experience. So I don't think you'll be running into a problem where you're coming in and out of phases constantly because of garrisons. There are very predefined locations in several different zones where you can build them, but those are, relatively small compared to the zone itself.
It's also worth noting that we have some new tech that will help us better integrate the garrison into the world outside. Whereas with your player farm in Half Hill today, you only kind of see your own personal plots and farm phase in as you kind of walk up to the farm. our plan is that if you have a mage tower in your garrison and you're 1,000 yards away across the zone, you'll still see the silhouette of your own tower long before you get there.
Hi, I'm Richard Boone, guild leader for Wild the Musical on Chandras. Now, you were saying that you would like to get more friends working together to do the content on this. Where was any love for the guilds? That's our biggest thing for getting friends together.
I think
are you going to bring back, have group will travel?
Well, when we say friends, we mean that interchangeably with guild mates, right? So if you are, going on one of these dungeon runs with your guild mates, that's kind of what all we mean is that you've pre-grouped with somebody before you enter the instance. So if you group up with your guild mates and go into the dungeon, you'll get that stacking the deck bonus, for example.
Okay, 2 expansions ago, you gave us a bunch of guild perks. Last expansion, and so far this expansion, we see nothing.
Yeah, it's one of those systems where we feel like, it accomplished what we wanted it to accomplish for Cataclysm, but it isn't the kind of thing where we feel like we really get a whole lot out of it by continuing to pile on more levels and more perks. If we had some awesome ideas for what perks we wanted to do that just felt like, oh my God, we have to do this, then it would make sense for us to add some levels. But we don't want to be in the reverse situation where we're just increasing the level just to increase the level and then having to contrive perks to fill it out.
Flex rating should also help guilds in a lot of ways. We think flexible gives you a lot of, flexibility building groups and keeping a guild together and having different sizes of guilds work with the content. So flex is a really good feature for guilds, I think.
Hey, I'm Suzushiro from Big Crits. My question was on flexible raid sizes. Because right now, flexible caps at like 25 people, which makes sense because every other raid site caps at 25 people. But in Warlords, flexible is the normal one and is the norm. And Mythic is this weird mode that requires a specific number of people. So in that context, flexible, no other normal raid nodes capping at 25, that feels like something weird, arbitrary number. Why not make it 30? Why not make it 40? A lot of people, ever since you removed them, a lot of people were asking for 40-man raid spec. I thought they were crazy, but why not give it back to them?
I think that's definitely an interesting suggestion. There is some upper limit at which we lose confidence in our ability to make the fight mechanics scale truly seamlessly, as well as there are obviously issues that people have seen with input lag. The more people are involved, a lot of it scales exponentially in relation to the number of players present. But something like 30 is certainly a possibility, since there are social groups that are around that size today. It's not something that we have planned in stone right now, but it's something we certainly could explore.
My question is directed at Mr. Hazakostas. Hazakostas? That's it.
Yeah, close enough.
What's the status
Has a question.
What's the status on character scaling for old 5-mans and raids?
So the feature that was very briefly accessible, you're saying, in the recent 5.4 patch? I think so. That's something that we're exploring. I think the question is really how to do it correctly. We have the ability, as we've seen, in challenge modes and proving grounds, to scale item level down. We've also been exploring how to scale player level down functionally such that you keep your abilities, but maybe that their potency changes. It's something that we're still working on, continuing to work on, and once we have a way that we're happy with in terms of fully integrating it into the game as part of a reward structure, it's something that we'll have more to talk about in the future. But we're definitely interested in finding a way to explore and let people revisit the old content in a way that feels relevant, since there's so many dungeons out there and old raids that people probably never saw at the intended level.
So my question is about the garrison followers. When you send your followers out into the world to do a quest, do a dungeon, are they actually completing that content for you so the player doesn't have to do it, or is it garrison specific?
It's actually going to be garrison specific content. It wouldn't be something where like the follower is taking anything away from you. we're going to craft all of that content uniquely, specifically just for the garrisons.
Hello, I am WatchTech, former top druid in Goon Squad Mal'Ganis, and yeah, Mal'Ganis! So last expansion, we decided we didn't like the hassle of 25-man raids, so we went to 10, and now we do heroics, and it seems like you're taking our content away, so what are we supposed to do?
Again, understandable question, understandable position to be in. That said, I mean, Goon Squad certainly in particular is a fairly large community with, I would imagine, a number of interested heroic raiders to draw upon who may be returning for Warlords. I think that ultimately there is a population of people out there who are looking to do this cutting-edge, difficult content, and there will be some rearranging involved, inevitably, as happened when we went from 40 to 25, but really we're making this as as sort of a change with an eye towards the long-term health of the game, towards the long-term health of high-end rating, and that we'll be able to deliver a better experience when we can focus the design and the tuning and the content creation on a single player size. For example, right now, there are many times where we have some cool mechanic that we would like to do, but we realize it's not going to scale down to 10 players at the high end very well, so we have to leave it on the cutting floor. Going forward, we think we'll be able to deliver a higher level of content, even though we do understand that in the short term, it does put people in a difficult situation.
It looks like we're out of time, so thanks everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, BlizzCon.
Thanks, guys.
You're watching BlizzCon 2013.